Welcome to the Spirit of Truth video podcast. Joining us today is my good friend Austin Reissner. He's in town from Arizona and we're lucky to have him. We're going to talk about all his history, his Mormon background, and his love for Urantia Book Part 3. Stick around, it's going to be awesome. Welcome back. So joining me today, we're really lucky to have him. He was coming through town and we invited him to join us on the Spirit of Truth, is my good friend, Austin Reissner. Welcome, Austin.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, it's good to have you here. Thanks for coming down through from Arizona.
Yeah.
I look forward to going over there in April.
Oh, cool. I want to see you there.
Yeah, cool. So we'll get to hang out. That'll be fun. And all the other cool people there.
Heck yeah.
The cool people from the Grand Canyon Society. You guys are awesome. All your generosity over the time and wisdom. Just really appreciate you guys and all you awesome people, all you awesome Urantia Book readers out here. So here's one of them, my good buddy Austin, who I was lucky enough to meet when I think we were at a conference in San Antonio.
Yeah.
That's when I first met you.
Yeah, it's 2016.
Okay, that's when it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of kind of youth readers that kind of showed up to that conference, and it was a good time. I thought we got to break off and have some good interactions.
It was the first time I've ever met another Urantia Book reader was when I got off the airplane and David, I can't remember it was an older gentleman.
Kulicki?
Kind of, I think it starts with an H. His last name Hags. Anyway, Haglin maybe? Anyway, David, he saw me and I was like, you're the first Urantia Book reader I've ever met. And he was like, well, I'm really blessed. Thank you very much. He's such a cool guy, very soft-spoken, very knowledgeable. My first question to him was, what in the world is the supreme being? And it took him about 10 minutes to explain it to me, but I totally got it now.
And don't make me put you on the spot to have you explain it to the world.
No, that's okay. In a gist, I can explain the supreme being in a gist. Basically, it's the evolutionary God of the universes of time and space, and we're all contributing to this supreme being, and eventually he will rule all of, I think, the master universe of all the 7 super universes or something like that. I'm trying to remember.
Well, I think a good way for us to remember it is that we're part of this co-creative experiential project that as we create, there's an influence in the rest of the world. It's that then is also experiencing. There's a form of divinity that is experiencing alongside with us. It's kind of cool when you look at like the New Age movement, how they talk about how I asked the universe for this, or the universe is on my side today, or come on, universe, help me find my key.
Universe has personality, by the way, a loving personality, and is always wanting to root for you. So you ask the universe, you're asking personalities, loving parental personalities that want to cherish you and bring up your eternal surviving soul within you so that you can be perfect just as God is perfect. And I think that's one of the things that really kind of drew me into the Urantia Book, because I grew up Mormon, right? So we're always talking about, well, we're going to eventually be perfect and we're going to see God, we're going to attain the Father. But that's the extent of it in the Mormon church. But the Urantia Book goes a little further and says, once you attain the Father, you're not going to be there forever. I mean, you're kind of useless just with God. Go back out into the universes of time and space and help them evolve to perfection, just like God intended. When a lot of the Christians, they assume that God created our universe. Well, if he did, it would be perfect, because everything that God creates is perfect. Our universe is not perfect. It's actually the creator sons of God that create the universes of time and space evolution, and encourage us and spread the message to be perfect. And now it's not gonna take one lifetime, obviously, and we're not talking about like, just got to be perfect. Like, a single hair out of place. Well, that kind of
ties into the Mormon belief of eternal life. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, was it a difficult stretch to go from being brought up in the Mormon practice, Mormon faith, and then
flipping on over,
and then hearing where'd you find the Urantia Book?
In 2013, I was working at a hospital, and the first time it was with a patient, and we were just talking about spiritual things and in general. And this lady says, "Have you ever heard of the Urantia papers?" And I was like, "What?" That's a weird name. Oh, I guess it's the name of our world, but my mom back east, she reads it, and it might be right up your alley. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll look it up. Not. So
Really?
Yeah, 4 days later, I'm at another hospital, this time talking to a nurse. And she's like, "Hey, have you ever heard of the Urantia revelation?" And I was like, that's the second time someone's ever mentioned this weird name. WTF is that? Sorry. So I look it up. I go on Google and I'm like, how in the world do you spell this thing? And finally, it's like, do you mean Urantia? And I've heard people pronounce it Urantia and stuff like that.
There's all sorts of names.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. That's cool. So I read the first paper of it, and it's just talking about God himself, not the Trinity, not the eternal Son, just God. And I read the first paper, and I thought, well, that sounds like pretty much everything I'm into and I believe in. Let's read the second paper. So I read the second paper, and it started to mention this Michael. And I'm like, who in the world is Michael? Are they talking about Jesus? What's going on here? And so I look up a little more and find out, yeah, Michael is Jesus. Michael is the creator son of our universe. He bestowed himself on our planet about 2,000 years ago and is now the sovereign son, sovereign master of his own self-made universe. And we are just one little planet in millions of inhabited worlds. And
so that's what hooked you?
Yeah, really, it was the BU perfect. And then another one was this guy, Melchizedek.
Oh, yeah.
In the Mormon church, they're all about Melchizedek.
Well, can you enlighten us who are naive to that?
Well, in Mormonism, you have two priesthoods, and they're like invisible spiritual mantles that you put on, basically, and they bestow you with the different mantles. Like the first one would be the Aaronic priesthood. It's like a preparatory priesthood in order for the Melchizedek priesthood to come in, which is really to them is the priesthood of Christ.
Okay,
which is cool. That's all right. But it's like it's not an order of being to them. It's more like a
title.
Yeah, just a title, and it gives them the thought anyway that they can speak and act in the name of God. Well, if you know that you're a son of God, you can speak and act in his name all you want. He's your father, and if you're going to choose to represent him on this world just as Jesus did, and he told us to represent God just as he did, well then, why not?
Okay,
it's a beautiful thing.
Well, all right. So we get your conflictions with the Mormon.
Yeah, a little bit.
Continue on though about at least the fact that a lot of us don't understand even the concept that the Mormon religion believes in continued revelation, right?
Oh yeah.
So give us the goods, man. Let us know.
All right. So back in the 1820s. Joseph Smith, he was receiving revelation, seeing visions of personages and telling him, hey, dude, you need to start this movement so we can progress this planet to go along the lines of divine perfection.
So you had a visitation by an angel?
Yeah. Moroni was the name of this angel, who was a resurrected being, who came to Joseph Smith to show him where the plates are buried and all that stuff. But what's interesting is that Moroni and Morontia, very similar. And of course we know that Morontia means already a resurrected being. So, maybe Joseph Smith might have had some contact with something other than human to help spur along the evolutionary lines of basically for this big, beautiful blue book we got right here. Because if this came out in the 1830s, like the Book of Mormon did, Joseph Smith would have never just been tarred and feathered.
Yeah.
He would have been outright killed, and this revelation would have never came to the light of day. As it was already hard enough just to slightly tweak a little bit of what everyone assumed was the gospel of Jesus and say, hey, maybe Jesus wanted to visit everywhere. Maybe he did visit the red man, in ancient days after his resurrection. There's so many things that the Book of Mormon talks about, and the teachings of the prophets and the church and all that the Urantia Book not only touches on, but goes into detail about, where the rest of the Mormons were going, what does it mean by that? I mean, we kind of get it a little more than just the Bible because we've got this extra revelatory information. But then the Urantia Book comes and just wipes the floor with everything. Like, I grew up thinking that I grew up on modern revelation. I even started to get into like the Bhagavad Gita, into the Rig Vedas and all this other stuff, and even a little bit into the Quran. And then I read the Urantia Book and went, those are nothing. Like, comparatively, when it comes to true universal revelatory reality, this book takes the cake like 10 to 100 fold. It's interesting because Joseph Smith did preach about a greater revelation that was to come. Right. And he set specific points, like what the book was going to talk about, how big it was going to be, and all these little things. This book matches every single one to a T. The thing is, it didn't come from the church. And of course, if it doesn't come from the church, it's of the devil. That's how they see it.
So perhaps he had a incorrect interpretation of what the church is.
At the time, he had a correct interpretation, but it wasn't perfect. It wasn't good enough, in my opinion. Right. Although it happened, and I think it definitely happened for a reason, especially to help out our world. I mean, because of the Mormon church, I think a lot of the rest of the world was able to accept a little more peacefully newer revelation. God's always trying to reveal himself to his children up to the umpth degree that we can spiritually recognize him. And he's not going to stop. And especially if he's infinite, it's always going to come to his children. Learn more about me, seek you first the kingdom of God. Then everything else will kind of fall into place.
Well, yeah, I know I keep harping this Mormon thing, but I'm just so fascinated by it because, like, when you and I met, we obviously kind of hit it off because of our fascination with the history of this planet, part 3. And just how it ties in with into part 4. I mean, I always get a kick out of when we would hang out and maybe I would share something that Jesus quoted, and then you'd be like, oh, he was fulfilling revelation there, or he was fulfilling scripture there because Elijah said da-da-da-da, and I'm like, oh, cool. It's nice to connect that, which is prophecy and then fulfilled, in revelation, in real revelation.
Yeah, he fulfilled all of the wise promises of all the prophets. Yeah, he was the fulfillment of it, and it was, and in the Urantia Book, it makes a beautiful case of exactly how he did it, who he was, why he came, who he is in relation to us, who we are in relation to the universe, God, everything. It's beautiful. So
do you see a point in time or even a current activity in the Mormon church? I don't know how in touch you are anymore with them, of any acceptance of some of these teachings?
I've been talking to a couple of members of the church. They have, for some reason, an idea in their head that this next coming April for the general conference, that the church might have more revelation. And I'm hoping that might be the case. I love to see revelation come about and be fulfilled, because honestly, it felt like the church was being stagnant for like decades. And I don't believe the church is ever supposed to be stagnant. The people should be alive with the Spirit of God. And you don't need a church to be enthusiastic, and filled with God's Spirit is what it basically.
Well, they're not the only, I'd say, like, gathering that has grown stagnant. I mean, whenever there's a lack of dynamic truth flowing, in a group of people, then you kind of fall back to the ritual, the standardization of
traditions,
what it is.
And ceremonies, and we're comfortable with those.
Well, yes, exactly. We're comfortable because we know what to expect, and I think that all institutions are kind of struggling with that right now.
I'd say almost all of them. I can't really name any institutions that aren't.
Well, I think if you look at institutions as a quality of thinking, like like what if we considered video games as an institution? Okay, so people are gathering online playing video games, aren't they?
Yeah, and you know what? In the book, it does say that even through your profession, and what if your profession is making video games? Even through your profession, you can still disseminate the light of life.
Sure.
and let's say you make a game that's based on the Adam and Eve story, or like the Lucifer rebellion. Oh man, that'd be a beautiful game to really tie someone in to the reality of history of our world and what really happened. And what it was kind of like. You look at Lord of the Rings, for example. Beautiful example. You got the elves coming to Middle Earth to show evolving mankind a higher culture and music and beauty and art, and even to admix their superior DNA with that of evolving men. Well, that's exactly what the Adamites did when they arrived on Earth. And even during those times, 37,000 years ago, the Fandors were around. They were literally riding on the giant eagles, that you see in the movie.
For those of us who don't know what Fandors are,
the Fandors. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I guess they're like a different type of ostrich, so to speak. And I guess the ostrich stayed on the ground, and the Fandors started soaring.
They evolved to take flight.
And what I've heard is that they actually grew to be about as tall as a giraffe when they landed, and they were still able to carry people like 700 miles. And I mean,
there's two people for 500 miles.
Yeah,
they can carry two people for up to 500 miles.
So the Fandors were a reality, and I think they started to find out about them like through the archaeology. Not archaeology. What's it called? Paleontology. Okay. Yeah, because they originally in Jerusalem, around Jerusalem, they found these what they thought were large, long trees that were petrified, and they were kind of broken up. But when taking a closer examination, they weren't trees. They were the finger bones of these enormous birds, like stretching through their wingspan. It was like, wow.
Get out of here.
No, it was a reality, dude. Like, okay, so not only the eagles, the elves, they were real because they were basically the Adamites. They were trying to biologically upstep us, also spiritually, probably technologically, all sorts of different ways that they were supposed to upstep us. And then, and that's just Lord of the Rings. And I can go into so many details about.
Well, I can tell that you're way into the fantasy world. Yeah. Not that, you're saying it's kind of art recreating reality, really. Right?
I'm kind of thinking that Tolkien may have had some sort of spiritual inkling of what the past was and how it was really like.
Yeah, you're not the only one who feels that way.
Yeah,
I've got a few Urantia friends who really.
Yeah, John and David. They were the ones that introduced that idea to me, and I was like, dude, that's epic. I'm gonna spread it everywhere. I'm just gonna let you know, because that's beautiful.
Well, I mean, I know you're a gamer. You like to get into that world.
Dude, gaming has been my life for like ever. Role-playing games, card games, board games, video games, any sort of games, and getting together and having fun. It's wonderful. And if you can get together, have fun, do all that, and be informative of like universe truths and stuff, even better.
Yeah. Well, do you foresee a time when there's like revelation in games? I know you already talked about it, where you're like, you'd love to see maybe a video game about the Lucifer Rebellion or Van, maybe something like that. That
would be epic. That we have videos on it, books on it. We have all these other sorts of media things about it. What about games?
Well, it's interesting because, I work at the Urantia Book Fellowship, and we have all these secondary works, meaning Urantia Book readers who have written their own books that were inspired by the Urantia Book. Maybe they're talking about the Urantia Book, or maybe they've written their own creative novel or whatever it is, but it's always inspired by the Urantia Book, hence secondary works. And I wonder, that was our parents' generation. What's our generation of secondary works? Is it in the video game world? Is it more in the film world? Is it,
both?
I hope. That's why we started this Urantia Book Network.
Yeah.
And thanks to everyone who helped out, because this is part of the next stage of information dissemination, I feel like,
I think so too. We need to push more into the gaming community and into that media area. Not really push, but really just show up, and then normally people go, well, what makes you tick the way you talk, TikTok. And they're like, oh, well, my faith in God, and then slowly build off of that.
Well, it was funny. I mean, even at the store today, you're talking to the cash register girl.
Yeah. And she seemed like she was like, wow, that's really cool. Well, when I mentioned that whole idea of the Adamites being the elves and whatnot, she was like, oh, that's cool. And another one would be a tie-in with Star Wars, not just Lord of the Rings, Star Wars and the Lucifer Rebellion, or Star Trek or whatever.
Sure. Star Wars and Lucifer Rebellion, probably.
Yeah, because Lucifer, he basically the head CEO of our world, and not only our world, but like 600 plus other inhabited worlds. And he wanted to throw a rebellion against the government of the universe, the government of God. And he thought, well, I can just do it better. Well, you can also tie that in with Star Wars, and it's really, really easy to do so. You can take almost any genre, even Harry Potter. I had some people talk to me about Harry Potter in the Urantia book, and I was like, how in the world are you going to get this to mingle? Well, if the wizards are midwayers, and I'm like, huh. Okay. I don't know. This is cool that you could take almost anything and tie it in. You can take sports, you can take history, geology, politics, religion, science, philosophy, whatever it is, and you can tie it in the Urantia book beautifully.
It seems that that's the way Revelation works.
Yeah. It does say that the purpose of Revelation is not to reveal new religion or new science, but to correlate both into the reality of reality.
Oh, yeah.
Truth of reality.
Well, it works on evolution. Right. So it always works on evolution, upsteps it a bit. Right.
Yeah.
But you have to have a fundamental underlying stream of some level of awareness of intelligence and culture for you to actually work with.
Yeah.
Right?
A good example would be like, we're in sirens.
We're in the city.
Anyway, so a good example would be if you took a math major, right? And you went to, let's say, some sort of tribe down in New Guinea or something, whose highest number system they can count to is 2. They're like 1, 2, and then after that is many. There's nothing after that. How are you gonna give them advanced revelation if they don't have all of the foundation, for example, that English has and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, that makes my mind think about, and hopefully you can bring us back to the Mormon Church's perspective, is that the emergency bestowal of Makaventa Melchizedek on this planet, he's seeing such a moral decline and cultural backsliding down.
Yeah, the concept of God was growing very hazy in the minds of men 3000 BC, which is why they were like, hey, we'd like to make a petition for us to do something about this, because this is, especially if if Christ, Michael, if he's going to come down to our planet, we're not ready. We got to do something. And when they petitioned, they were told no. And they're like, oh, crud. Oh boy. And I'm thinking they were really feeling kind of panicky, and they're like, oh, let's go to the Father Melchizedek, because we have our own government, of the universe. We don't have to listen to, I don't know, the constellation fathers for this exactly. So let's ask the Father Melchizedek, hey, can we do this, bestow on this planet and help out this world for the preparation of the coming of Christ? And they're like, do what you think is what you need to do. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, the way I remember it was that there was a petition and request for it, and there was like, well, it's all right because Michael's going to go down there, but if you think you need to go there, then, no one's stopping you.
Yeah. Hey, no one's stopping you. If you think you need to help out mankind, go for it. And so he did. Yeah. Him and his 11 council was
the Melchizedek receivers.
Yeah. The 12 that was here.
So then back to the Mormon Church, where they talk about, they really understand, or I wouldn't say understand, but they're conscious of the priesthood and the order of Melchizedek,
right,
as we talked about. And then is there anything in there about further visitation of Melchizedek on this planet?
Not Melchizedek himself. No, they're all about just the priesthood of it, not the persons of it.
So the title.
They don't understand. They don't accept that the Melchizedek is an entire order of being. They're different sons of gods, just like angels. They're different children of God. The Melchizedeks are too. They're not humans, but that's what they believe. Yeah.
Okay. Well, cool. All right. Well, let's go another direction. I know that you're a father. You've got a family.
Yeah.
I've actually gotten hang out with your family? Awesome people, awesome kids.
I got awesome kids. I do.
Really cool, really smart, really fun. What's that like? Do you teach the Urantia Book to them at all?
Yeah. It was kind of a double-edged sword whatever. When I first started getting into the book, I was kind of fanatical about it. And
You mean you aren't still?
not nearly as much as I was like before. I was just like, people be talking about horses, and I'd be like, "Hey, the Urantia Book talks about the horse," and everything was tied.
Everything,
to the Urantia Book.
yeah, totally.
And then of course my family would be like rolling their eyes or
That
giving me the
again.
little, "Hey, stop it,"
Yeah.
And I get that a lot, but whatever.
Yeah, I remember. Like I said, you talking to the girl at the cash register.
Yeah,
I was just like, okay, I'll leave that to him.
If my kids heard me starting to do that, my daughter would be like, "Dad, you're doing it again."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, whatever.
But like I said, they're good kids, So are there any concepts that you adapt into your parenting style?
I just try to be the best father I know I can be. It's hard though, because sometimes I'll catch myself like, why am I purposely being mean to my family? Is it because I know they love me and won't, it's always
very human.
like, it's easier to be nice to friends and people you don't know than it is with your family for some reason. And I've always, I'm consciously catching myself doing this, and I'm like, oh man, I got to change more and more. And the more I change, and just the more and more like God I want to be like, because Jesus, he was the perfect father. Even though he didn't have children of his own, he still raised his siblings.
Sure.
And he talked to everyone as though they were his own children, loved them as though they were
very
his
lovingly.
own. Yeah. And in reality, we are his children, his universe children. And so the father concept, he never wavered from, not once, from the day of his baptism till his death on the cross. Never once did he waver from the father concept. So I think what I'm trying to do right now is to just be a better father while I have my kids to rear, until they can grow up and make decisions, of their own. But I'm always trying to push them, kind of push them more in the right direction, lean more towards beauty, goodness, and truth, because nothing is really true unless it's both beautiful and good.
Yeah.
Philosophically, materialistically, spiritually, whatever it is. If it isn't beautiful and good, then it isn't true. And everything Jesus ever taught and did was beautiful and good to everyone.
So then, like, reflecting that personality of Jesus, do you maybe take on the practice of prayer? Do you pray with your kids at home?
No,
Okay.
I have a feeling like if I started to do that, then there'll be a lot of resistance, and it's like, I should, but
No, I'm not putting you on the spot here. Do you pray before meals?
no, dude. I pray as I eat, dude. I pray as I'm eating.
I'm so thankful
I'm like,
to eat this.
man, this is so good. God, thank you. I'm so blessed. And
Well, it's funny because I only bring this up because I was thinking about it today. It's like we always say a prayer before we start our show, and invite the Spirit of Truth, and then ask for wisdom and strength and spiritual guidance. And it just got me thinking, like, is it so mundane to just pray before every meal? Is that
if it's rote,
it can become like the ritual of just going to church, and then you just go to church to do it, right? It's like, okay, everyone say grace, same 12 words. Okay, that's it. Now we did our.
What I didn't know is, while I was growing up, is like, even though I didn't like it, church, it was kind of like what I needed,
Okay. Like
it was
what?
almost like a therapy type of thing. Not knowing that I needed it, but I did.
What was the dynamic like? You wake up in the morning, you have to go to church on Sunday?
When I was a kid, and it's time to go to church, and when I was growing up, I always felt like my dad was very angry about if we weren't on time, we got it, And then as I'm older, and I look back, and I'm like, man, my dad's actually a lot cooler than I thought,
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah. For all of us, we do that as we mature. I feel like.
Going to church and learning the deep doctrine of the LDS Church is what I was really into. I was like, man, I want to know what all the prophets talked about.
Why?
I want to know all. I just had a fascination with what I felt was bringing about more and more of God's will on earth, and at the time, the only thing I knew about was this new revelation called the Book of Mormon and the Doctrine and Covenants and all this stuff.
Okay.
And so I at first for the first few years I was kind of on fire about it, trying to get people to read the Book of Mormon a little, but I wasn't nearly as on fire as I am for this book still. And it's been 6 years now.
Okay. Well, I can tell that, you're kind of like a natural evangelist.
Yeah. I feel a big calling to that.
So when you have, I feel I'm extroverted enough to have this podcast and stuff. I'm not going to deny that I like to communicate. I went to school to communicate. So I think that those of us, we all have our different skills, our God-given abilities, talents, acquired skills. Yeah. So I would like to maybe see. Obviously, I'm not your dad and want to see what you can do with your life, but I'd like to see where you have an opportunity where you're talking about things that you're passionate about and you believe in. So do you foresee maybe some kind of future for you where you can fit in your love for the Urantia book in a platform to help other people? Or?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see that in the future.
Have you ever just kind of meditated on that?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I've been kind of thinking about it on and off. Maybe every few days I'll be thinking about what can I include in my storyline, my NPCs? How can I do a narrative hook for normal, even atheists? How can it be cool for everyone to get to know the truth of history?
Well, here's a cool thing is like for maybe people who don't know, you do Dungeons and Dragons. You're like a dungeon master for Dungeons and Dragons, right? So you can make campaigns and things like that.
I've been making campaigns since I was like 12.
So this is your venue then. This is where
my forte.
You can start to plant seeds with these people who are in these clubs.
Heck yeah, dude. I can. I feel like if I really put my mind to it and I really had the time and the support and everything, I can really bring a really cool game that people can go, hey, what is this Urantia stuff? And I'll just maybe mention it one time at the end credits or something. I don't know, just something to get people to look into science, into philosophy, into religion, and really find out the truth of all of it, because we're supposed to know it. If we are to attain the Father, He is all that is to me. So we have to know all that is too.
Yeah. So something that's interesting that I always find is these like famous Urantia Book readers. You know what I mean? Like celebrity Urantia Book readers, and then I always look at the evolutionary process of a Urantia Book reader. And it's kind of like this: you find the Urantia Book, it's kind of you have this conviction where you're like, man, this might be real. So you're like, okay, how can I validate this to the world so that my cohorts can believe me? Yeah. Right. And so you kind of look it out in the stratosphere and you see, okay, well, Jimi Hendrix read the Urantia book, and Carlos Santana read the Urantia book, and all these other famous people read the Urantia book.
Gene Roddenberry used to be a part of it.
And that's your way to like justify, that this is credible as a source. And I don't know, like, did you go through that process?
Nah.
You weren't trying to be like Jimmy and did this and all that?
No, I didn't know about all these famous people that read the book until a couple of years after I started reading it. I was like, I doubt anybody reads this. I never even heard of this book until 2013.
Where'd you reach out to know that there was gatherings or that there were people who were also reading?
Online at first. It showed me some of the study groups in Arizona. And of course, when I call them, they're always like 3 to 2 hours away, and I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah, thankfully with technology now, people use Zoom and Skype and other things.
Yeah, you could, but I personally don't have the technology to do it.
Really?
I got my Android phone, but it's like a cheap knockoff, so it kind of half works, and it's not worth it right now. I have to invest into more of the technological stuff to do it.
Yeah, well, maybe down the road there'll be Urantia technology. That'd be cool.
Earth technology.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Something that reflects more of the values and ideals of what someone who's affected by revelation and tries to actualize it in their daily life.
Yeah.
Like I'm really, personally for me, I'm really inspired by the part in the Urantia book where it kind of talks about the beginning stages at first were a struggle for life, for survival, for a quality of living. And the next coming struggle will be for that of a quality of thinking, right? And so as it doesn't take much to just look around and understand our brothers and sisters are kind of struggling with the quality of thinking on this level. Not that I am a master of any thinking by any means, but still I'm privileged and blessed with a revelation on my hands.
I think that the biggest problem with the majority of people is that they their immediate go-to is unhappiness. You know, they're thinking, well, if I do this or meet this person or whatever, I'll be happy then. Well, what if you don't have those conditions met? Why can't you just be happy? What gave me that background of fallback of happiness was to know that I am a child of God. Like the realization of that it's exactly what Jesus said, is ennobling. What is ennobling? It makes you inspired. It makes you enthusiastic. It gets you excited about life again, because life is definitely worth living, especially when you can be enthusiastic and excited about things.
But there's Leonard, and you and I were talking about this last night, and you know, I'm a Bruce Lee guy, and there's this, what he talks about, this concept of unnatural naturalness or natural unnaturalness, right? And that it's this unnatural happiness, unnatural joy, because like you just said, everyone's kind of depressed about stuff. So that's this natural reaction to our society because something's messed up. But then the real natural way is to slip back into your primitive nature, right? Into nature.
That's a natural way.
Right. And so,
Don't be natural.
And it can be seductive and it can feel good, right? It can feel natural,
sure,
right?
but how are you going to progress spiritually?
Well, the point is then choosing this happiness in being in a sonship under divinity.
Yeah.
To your average natural person could seem like sacrificing your godness.
Oh gosh, no. See, a lot of people have this concept like if I'm going to surrender my will to God's will, well, my goodness, there goes my identity. There goes my free will. There goes all this other. No, if anything, it makes you more unique, makes you more of who you really are. It drives you to be more like God, and God is unlike anything we can ever conceive of in this world, ever.
Yeah.
So if you're going to conceive of a perfect personality, why not embody it and be it? I mean, if God is all that is, including you and dwelling within you, change your mind for his mind.
Well, I always find it interesting how, you know, these people who develop into the point, I love when people go from like staunch atheist to followers of Jesus, because they've softened their heart to the point where they realize that mercy is the true power on this planet.
Yeah.
Right. And in eternity. And it's like, wow, I have had to flip everything upside down. Mm-hmm. The first became last, the last became first. And I realized that mercy and love is really the power, the force.
It's a lot like Yoda.
A bit.
Yoda, he says, you must unlearn what you have learned. And it's so true. We grew up thinking, well, you know, maybe the gods will be appeased if we do some blood sacrifice, huh? That'll make them happy. Are you serious? No. Yeah. You know, the one of the beautiful things I found in this book is their concept ran along the same lines of my concept of the atonement, and you know, it's more like at one with is what it really means. With, and Jesus was always at one with God, the will of the Father. Mm-hmm. Even when he was on the cross saying, my God, why have you forsaken me? And
quoting scripture.
Yeah, a lot of people, they're like, oh, he's fulfilling scripture. No, he's not. He was quoting scripture that's 1,000 years older than he is. Yeah. And even in his last seconds of mortal thinking, he was still quoting scripture. He was such a holy God.
I love the heroic fashion that he was on the crucifix and still saving the souls of these like
The two brigands.
thieves and stuff on the cross. And not that they're bad, but like to look at his children that he left it all on the field. Ultimate player of all time, left it all on the field. Number one.
Man. even as he was in the midst of torture and death, he was still loving, even to the a-holes next to him.
Well, even if they weren't a-holes, he didn't see him as a-holes. You know what I mean?
One was.
Yeah.
One was like, hey, if you really are who you say you are, why don't you save us and yourself? And the other guy is like, hey, cut it out. Don't you know who this guy is? He's dying in the place of our leader, Barabbas. But I can kind of see the truer hero in this guy than Barabbas.
Yeah, more character.
Yeah.
More quality character. Yeah, for sure.
This is a good cider.
Well, actually, for you guys who don't know, since we had a special occasion with Austin being here, so we got this one cool cider. It's called Eden.
Eden, yeah.
It's
second edition.
Yeah, it's even the second.
There's like
edition.
5 apples in it, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to make sure we got all the apples covered there.
Yeah. It's good cider. I think they're out of Vermont. Good job, you guys.
Yeah. Oh, we went to that one coffee place this morning. It was beautiful. Otis. Oh, wow. My goodness. That coffee place blew my mind. I walked right outside the atrium where you showed me, and I was just like,
well, that's a unique place. I know it's like personal, local Colorado stuff, but that's owned by a mega church here, the Flatirons Church.
Never heard of them.
And I think there's 2 locations in the local area, and they've got a good platform. They bought this building where there's multiple places for business, cafe, a couple brew pubs, shared office space. It's a cool concept.
Yeah.
The fact that, you can kind of feed, you could plant seeds in an active environment where people are going about their life.
Yeah, it's like they're using the congregation to run the stores that are in there to also feed my sheep, so to speak.
Sure.
Which is cool. I mean, because any religious organization can do that and really help upstep mankind. And that's what we really need. Is we really honestly, Earth needs to have the unadulterated Jesus back, not the Christ, but the Jesus, the man,
the human.
Yeah, he needs to come back, and we need to see how he lived his life and the things that he said and all that stuff to not just read it in a book and kind of get mostly of a concept of it, because I mean that's good enough. But I want to see him back here. I want to see him in action. I want to hear him. I want to see his smile. I want all of it. I want to if I had the technology like in Star Trek or whatever. I'm like, here, rewind the time about 2,000 years and press play.
Well, you'll get to.
Maybe, yeah.
You'll get to watch it.
Because that's what the world really needs.
Eventually.
And since we don't have that right now, all we have is the spirit of his spirit, the spirit of God and Jesus within us. And we can align our wills with theirs and express them imperfectly as they are expressed on high perfectly.
Yeah.
And I think there's a...
part in the Urantia Book?
Yeah, right here. I just opened up to this page and I was like, before we start, I'd like to read one of these.
Well, we already started, but go ahead.
Yeah. One of my favorite, let's see, in the Urantia Book, there's a part where Jesus was teaching the apostles different types of prayers and whatnot. He didn't mention to them that they were actually prayers from other worlds, but I'm going to read one, and here we go.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I don't know what world this is from, but Jesus knew it, and it says, "Glorious Father and Mother, in one parent combined, loyal would we be to your divine nature. Your own self to live again in and through us, by the gift and bestowal of your divine spirit, thus reproducing you imperfectly in this sphere as you are perfectly and majestically shown on high. Give us day by day your sweet ministry of brotherhood, and lead us moment by moment in the pathway of loving service. Be you ever unfailingly patient with us, even as we show forth your patience to our children. Give us the divine wisdom that does all things well, and the infinite love that is gracious to every creature. Bestow upon us your patience and loving kindness, that our charity may enfold the weak of the realm. And when our career is finished, make it an honor to your name, a pleasure to your good spirit, and a satisfaction to our soul helpers. Not as we wish, our loving Father, but as you desire the eternal good of your mortal children. Even so may it be. That was beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow.
What about that is for you? Because it obviously speaks to you. There's a few prayers in the Urantia book, you know?
Yeah.
Some stand out.
I was hoping to read a smaller one, but it's all right.
No, you can continue. Look it up. Look it up while we're talking. Yeah. Okay.
It's okay. But those prayers really.
Well, this one in particular, it's almost like it's all part of like the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah.
Right.
It's just another version of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I find is that in the mantras of the Vedas, they would do their prayers, so to speak, in a systematic rhythm or whatever. And what I find is in the Lord's Prayer and in these prayers that Jesus revealed to his apostles, it has the same rhythm and the same type of it's
cadence.
Yeah, cadence.
Yeah. I wonder what it'd be like in its authentic language. You know,
Like when you read the poem from Anas or Anna or whatever her name was, when Jesus was circumcised at the temple, when you read it in English, it's like, ugh, this is bad. But I bet in Aramaic it's beautiful.
That's right. That's hilarious.
It was like, wow, this is choppy and just. But in Aramaic, I bet it's beautiful. So.
Well, I always get fascinated by like which part of the Urantia book really speaks to people, because there's so much. Like you said, there's so much. Not only in Jesus's life alone, his incarnation in this planet, his bestowal on this planet, kind of fulfilled all the prophecies like we're talking about.
Yeah.
And that's what happens when you're the creator of the universe and you decide to walk on a planet.
Yeah,
you're going to fulfill all
hey,
these things.
That's me, by the way.
Now, then we have another revelation here with this Urantia book here, and it's kind of filling in all these blank spots from previous prophecy and things like that.
That reminds me of a prophecy from Joseph Smith. I don't know if I mentioned this, but he said that there was going to be a greater revelation that was to come.
Right.
And he made did I say this already?
Well, I mean, it includes.
Yeah.
We touched on it.
Well, basically, he gave a bunch of different spots of what the revelation would be like, and the Urantia fulfills every single one.
Any in particular?
Well, the size of the book. It said it was going to be about this size. About what was it? It was 10. I can't remember the exact proportions, but I can look it up. And it mentioned specific talking points and detail about universe administration, what happened to Adam and Eve.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of specific things that Joseph Smith, when he gave the revelation, it fit this book. But the problem is it didn't come from the church. So, but the revelators, when they gave it, they were like, you know what? Let's not have any human organization or human minds attached to this revelation, because this is going to be pure from the government of the universe.
But at the same time, I would say, like, and just as you're adamant about saying Joseph Smith's revelation, there's still this. There's many people, many Urantia book readers would say that at that time period, all the way up into the coming of this book and during the coming of this revelation on this planet, there was a lot of stirring of new thought, new idea, so that there was something that wasn't that big of a bridge to gap for people to understand evolutionarily when revelation comes. You need a foundation to work with, right?
And for me, the Mormon Church was the foundation. Without the knowledge that the church has and the way that they produce their dogmas and principles and doctrines and whatnot, it fits mostly. But the cool thing about this book is it takes away dogma, takes away doctrine, takes away creeds, takes away tradition. It takes away a lot of the things that you don't need. Do you think Jesus was a slave to tradition? I don't think so. I think he was a tradition breaker. You know, when he was healing the sick on the Sabbath, that was against the traditions and stuff. Well, so what?
Well, it reminds me still, and maybe this is just a recurring theme, but this courage to make the last first, but still having the discernment to not just be recluse about it. But, you know, it's like in the kingdom of men, mercy for the weak does not seem very advantageous for one. Right?
It doesn't, because it's a very immature.
Well,
type
it doesn't
of
get
thinking.
you forward. Like in the kingdom of man, when your neighbor is in need, that is a good time to charge him double for the product that he's in need of.
Right. There's
As opposed to, no, he's in need. I'm going to give him
I've got
this.
extra wheat. I could use extra money.
Right. So you see, the kind of the confliction of individuals understanding what has more value, and so there's certain things that are of value in this material kingdom, perhaps, yes, because there's material survival. But then there's things that are of spiritual value,
Which is the highest value.
right? But then it doesn't come as common sense right away to a mortal like us.
Yeah. I believe that God is not an author of confusion. He is not going to try to confuse us and make us think weirdly. He's very logical.
What do you tell people when they say, if there was a God, why would he let all this crazy, terrible things happen on this planet?
How else would you progress? If you didn't have the opposite and all you had was good, how would you know? Where's the progression? You have to have basically opposition in all things in order to know. That doesn't mean you have to be a part of that opposition. You just have to know it and choose the good, the beautiful, and the true. Amen. And that's what's going to be more along the lines of what God is beauty, goodness, and truth. Combine all of those, and there you find God, because God is only beautiful, good, and true. He's never ugly. He's never untrue. And he's never bad. And if he is, he's not God, because...
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of that. I would say that a lot of intelligent individuals have sworn and crossed off God because that they're just interpreting him through a primitive interpretation, a third grade definition of what God is. Mm-hmm. Even the Old Testament interpretation is rather grotesque of a vengeful judging father. And so they've kind of said, okay, because this is what's presented from what I've been exposed to, then there's no God. And how do you then address that? Because I can see your relationship with a loving parent.
Well, if you're an atheist and you don't believe in God, there's nothing I can say really that can really change your mind. Mm-hmm. Eventually you're going to find the truth, and you have to either accept truth or not. And if you're really an intellectual, honest person, can't talk right. If you're that type of person, you're going to accept the truth, But when it comes to like science and like the atheist aspect of it, just keep asking questions, good questions. Like, well, if you look into science, there's already over 200,000 reasons as to why the world shouldn't be the way it is. And they can find when they compare it to putting a Boeing 747 in a box, shaking it up with the gas and all, and saying that you have higher odds of shaking that box and making a plane than you are to develop life on a planet like this, because you have to meet every single thing perfectly. Dude, you gotta come to the realization that the entire universe is managed by personality, and is for the fostering of all will creatures, whether it be animal, spirit, whatever.
Amen. Well, we're going to have to get out of here, so let's get out on a good note.
Yeah.
I always appreciate your enthusiasm.
Thank you.
And I think that, you're a nice poster person for being an evangelical as far as explaining things to people in such a way that they can grasp it.
I hope so.
So I was hoping that maybe you could send us off in a way that, for those who are teens to 20s to 30s to 40s, who are kind of struggling with the reality of spiritual reality and family and whatever this planet's development is, what can you say that would maybe tip them to maybe they might want to look at the Urantia Book?
Family is number one thing. Number one social unit of society. And the Urantia Book exonerates, exalts, and and says, be you like God, who is a perfect loving father. Oh, it doesn't have to be a father, parent. That beautiful parent-child relationship we need to develop with the being that indwells us and with the beings that are all around us. If we can do that, it'd be wonderful.
Yeah. Well,
Until then, just be authentically you. You know, if I was to give any sort of advice out to anyone, just be you, be loving you. You know, don't think about and worry about the things you don't like. Instead, embrace and produce the things you love. That's the biggest difference. You know, all these people going around fighting against what they don't like and protesting against war and doing all this stuff. You know, and Jesus taught, resist not evil. Stop resisting evil and start pushing good.
yeah.
Big difference.
Representing good.
What do you think has more power in the universe? An anti-war protest or a pro-peace rally?
Right.
Which one do you want to do? You want to promote peace, or do you want to resist war?
Yeah.
Promoting peace is me, and that's what Jesus said. He says, happy are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. I want to be numbered as one of them, and I'm going to push peace.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, my bro. It's always awesome to have you here. You know, you're welcome back anytime. It's great to have you. And thanks you guys for supporting. Really appreciate it. God bless you all. Stay tuned for more great programming, and hopefully other awesome personalities will join us. Thanks again, Austin. Really appreciate it, brother.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.